Close your eyes for a second.
Actually, don't. That's exactly what they were afraid of. Before we talk about Apep, before we say his name, before we tell his story, you need to understand something about the world he came from. Ancient Egypt was not what your history books told you. It wasn't pharaohs and gold and beautiful tombs. It was a civilization built entirely around one single terror. The terror that tomorrow might not come. Think about that for a moment. Really think about it. Every single morning you wake up and the sun is there. You don't think about it. You don't question it. You roll over and check your phone, and the light is already coming through the curtains, and you feel nothing. The Egyptians felt everything, because they knew something you don't. They knew the sun didn't rise on its own. Every night, without exception, Ra, the sun god, died. His body grew cold, his light went out, and his soul descended into the Duat, the Egyptian underworld, a place so dark, so absolute, that even gods could lose themselves in it. And every night, waiting in that darkness, was something ancient Egyptians spent their entire civilization trying to hold back. Not a demon, not a monster invented to scare children. Something real, something they discovered, something that had been there before the first human ever looked up at the sky and wondered what the sun was. Before we say his name, you need to understand what the Egyptians understood. That the darkness is not empty. That the silence at 3 a.m. is not just silence. That every morning the sun comes back is not guaranteed. It never was. His name is Apep, and this is his story. Every culture in history has had a devil, a figure of absolute evil, something that exists purely to destroy, something that cannot be reasoned with, cannot be redeemed, cannot be understood. But here is what makes Apep different from every other dark figure in every other mythology in the world. He was never created. Every other god in Egyptian mythology had an origin. Ra emerged from the primordial waters. Osiris was born. Set was born. Even the darkest Egyptian gods had a beginning. Not Apep. The Egyptians believed Apep existed before creation itself, before Ra, before the gods, before the universe, before light, before time. He was not born into the darkness. He was the darkness. His form was a serpent, enormous beyond comprehension. The ancient texts say his body stretched for miles, that his voice alone could stop the hearts of gods. He had no eyes in the way we understand eyes. He could feel Ra moving through the darkness the way you feel heat from a fire before you see the flame. And every single night, with a hunger that had been building since before time began, he moved toward it. Chaos is not angry. Chaos doesn't need to be. It just needs to be left alone long enough. And the moment the rituals stopped, the moment the prayers went quiet, the moment the humans forgot, Apep would find the light. Now I want to tell you a specific story. Not the general myth, not the overview. One specific night. The night the Egyptians believed Ra almost didn't make it back. The night Apep almost won. The texts don't give this night a date. They don't say which pharaoh was ruling. Because to the Egyptians, this wasn't history. It was a warning. On this night, Ra's bark entered the Duat as it did every night. The gods took their positions. The protective spells were spoken. The torches were lit. But something was different. The tunnel was quieter than it should have been. That specific silence that is not the absence of sound, but the presence of something that has consumed sound. And then they saw him. Not a shape in the darkness, not a silhouette, just eyes. 2 points of absolute cold light in the black ahead. Unmoving, patient. The eyes of something that had been waiting in this exact spot since before the universe existed. Apep had positioned himself differently this night. Usually he attacked from below, but this night he had coiled his body around the entire tunnel. The gods began their spells immediately. Ra raised his staff. The light erupted outward, and Apep absorbed it. Just took it in, like the light had never existed. The head priest did something that had never been done before. He ordered every torch in Egypt lit simultaneously. Every temple, every home, every street. The entire civilization burning at once. Not as magic, not as ritual, as a message. We are here. We have not forgotten. We are still fighting. Ra felt the defiance of millions of humans refusing to accept the dark. Apep recoiled. Not defeated, but interrupted. It was enough. Ra broke through. The sun rose. And from that night forward, the morning ritual was never optional again, until they forgot. Now comes the part of this story that should disturb you most. Not the serpent, not the battle, not the night the sun almost didn't rise. What comes next? Egypt lasted 5,000 years. 5,000 years. The Roman Empire lasted roughly 500. Egypt outlasted it 10 times over. And for every single one of those years, the morning ritual never stopped. Then it stopped. Not dramatically, not with a single moment of failure. It stopped the way all important things stop. Gradually, then suddenly. There were priests who continued in secret, in hidden rooms, in private homes, keeping the knowledge alive against the full force of an empire telling them to stop. The last known hieroglyphic inscription ever recorded was found at the Temple of Philae, dated 394 AD. After that, silence. The last priest who understood the full ritual died. We don't know his name. We don't know where he died. One morning, for the first time in 5,000 years, nobody performed the ritual. And the sun rose anyway. Maybe the ritual was never necessary. Maybe Apep was never real. Maybe it was all just... The Egyptians were not primitive people who invented monsters to explain natural phenomena. They were engineers who built structures we still cannot fully replicate. Astronomers, doctors, the most sophisticated minds of the ancient world. Every civilization, every culture, every people that has ever existed on this planet, from the Egyptians to the Mayans to the Slavs to the Norse, every single one of them had a version of this, a darkness that exists before light, a chaos that must be held back, a ritual that must never stop. They didn't learn this from each other. They couldn't have. Separated by oceans and centuries and languages that had nothing in common. And yet they all felt the same thing in the dark. That feeling at 3 a.m. when the room feels wrong, when the dark feels heavier than physics says it should, when you check over your shoulder and there's nothing there but you don't quite believe it. That feeling is older than Egypt, older than humanity. The Egyptians just had the wisdom to take it seriously. And the thing about forgetting is that whatever you forgot didn't forget you. Next week, his name is Veles, god of the underworld, god of magic. And unlike Apep, he fought back. They forgot. You don't have to.